I met Dave when I walked into one of his stores as a teenager looking for a job. Without question, the best boss I've ever had. Outside of family, I also consider him to be my first mentor in business. As a serial entrepreneur, his accomplishments are vast, and yet you'll rarely find him touting anything except the team's success. Former president of Variety, the children's charity of BC, Dave has always operated his businesses with the notion that they should give back to the communities that they benefit from. I have always been impressed by him, and I hope after watching today's video, you will be too. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with Dave McConachie.
The first thing that I was curious about was your response to my inquiry, because when I asked you, you were the only one that asked why.
That's my modus operandi. I want to find out the why behind everything. So
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
everything that comes across my mind, I don't care about what it is. I more care about why. Why,
Right.
So you've asked for some of the most valuable things I have, and that's my time. And so I want to know why you want it.
I think it was the last time we saw each other. We went for lunch, and I don't even remember when that was. It's probably been 2 years at least. But I told you at that point that, outside my family, I considered you my first true mentor because, I did work for you and I learned a lot in terms of how you operated your business. I'm wondering, and I never asked you this at the time, I'm wondering, did you ever see yourself as that, whether to me or any of your other employees? Did you see yourself as a mentor, or were you just trying to operate your business?
I probably didn't think of myself as a mentor, but I always took a very, I was always interested in my staff, and I figured if I was going to be asking you to give me your best efforts to help me achieve my goals, you should have my best efforts to help you achieve yours. So some people took me up on it, like you and others didn't. And so, I didn't take it personal. I just,
How in general would you have described your leadership style?
I will try and be as collaborative as possible. I listen lots. I take feedback, but when a decision is made, I expect it to be executed. So.
Yeah, I don't remember you ever being much of a micromanager. You were very much, here's your training. I have confidence and you can do the job that I want you to do. Now go and do it. So
yeah, so that's it. You invest in training. You don't have to micromanage because people know what they need to do.
Maybe this wasn't your experience, it was mine. I mean, I worked for you when I was in high school, and a lot of the staff members were of a younger crowd. What challenges did that present to you that you've learned over the years? Because I mean, you've changed the businesses you've worked on, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but the workforce in retail was significantly younger. I would imagine that had to present certain challenges. So I'm just wondering what you saw your main challenges there.
Getting them to take things seriously. This was a job. This was not a, I was paying people to exercise certain behaviors, and they needed to exercise them. So that was kind of the main point. I mean, we always had a fairly decent team. The biggest challenge was just the constant turnover because every year, every summer you lose everyone, and then it just switches. So just the constant turnover was probably the biggest challenge. But I enjoyed the diversity of people. So it's
I mean, I remember one time working at Christmas, and I don't know if this was one of your biggest challenges, but I remember dropping a box of gift sets from a pretty big tower, and the entire box of gift sets broke. Obviously the product inside them didn't break, and you could still stock that and sell the product, but was breakage or theft a large problem at that point, or was I the only one?
I think we allocated something like 2% breakage and theft to write-offs, and we always came in under that every year, so it wasn't that
okay all right, well, that makes me feel a little bit better. But I was sort of accounted for then. You got into the body shop as sort of a family business, right?
Yes and no. So my mom was a franchisee. I always enjoyed working at the stores, and she basically said that she wouldn't sell them to her son because she wanted us to go make our own way.
Yeah.
And so basically I went away to university. I did very well. I came home with 2 or 3 job offers and said, look, I can make it on my own. Here are the job offers. I still want to buy you out.
Your mom sort of opened and started the stores, and then you bought them from her after going to university.
I went to is like she got it in just at the right time. She got it in as the body shop was just getting huge. And so basically, I was conscripted to work in summers and Christmas, anytime, because I took a year off school. So anytime she needed extra help, I would get a phone call saying, get your ass out of bed and come to this store. So that's how I got exposed to it. And I just really enjoyed the interaction with the people.
How old were you when she started that?
15.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, because then, you went to business school, right? That's what you went to university for, was a business degree? Yeah. And I've always found this interesting. You went to University of Hawaii, correct?
I went to Hawaii Pacific University, yeah.
Hawaii Pacific. Well, you went to university in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, yeah.
Yes, and that I think a lot of people think of that as just the dream, but focusing there has got to be a challenge, especially being that you are a surfer. And I don't know if that came before or after that.
I had surfed before going to Hawaii, but I didn't become a surfer until I was in Hawaii. But no, it's no different than the waves are no bigger a distraction than snowboarding is in the winter here. For kids who go to university here, you become acclimatized to Hawaii quite quickly. So the uniqueness of it kind of wears off after 2 months, and you've been there every day, and it's just kind of you've got classes, you got stuff to do, you got assignments. I will say my Canadian education made the first year and a half in the States in an American education system very easy, because they covered a lot of things in first year university that we would have covered in grade 11 to 12.
Oh, okay. Do you remember any of those kind of things, or that's just?
I remember science for business students, and I remember looking at it and I covered this stuff in grade 8, 9, and 10, and I know myself, and I knew myself that if I wasn't challenged, I wouldn't attend, and if I didn't attend, I wouldn't pass. So,
right.
And at the same time, I also had a bunch of friends who were in marine biology. So I took marine biology 100 and really pissed everyone off, including the professor, because I, as a business student, had the highest mark in the class.
Was that just a product of your focus, or was that just indicative of the intake class at that particular time?
No, it's a more a product of me being good at education, in educational environment. I know how to. I test well. I know how to study, and I had good communication skills, both written and otherwise. So I've just been good at school. Always good at school.
You've always been a good student?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where you and I differ. I was not always a good student. I feel like I'm a better learner as an adult than I was as a kid. You went to marine biology 101. Obviously that was because you had friends there. Was that ever a path you thought of, or was business always the path?
It would have been, I thought of a lot of paths, but my choices I always tempered with earning potential. So, I had the luxury of growing up, in a relatively comfortable lifestyle, very comfortable lifestyle by many people's standards. And, while I saw both my parents were entrepreneurs, and while I saw how hard they worked, I also saw the freedom it gave them. And, I never found that freedom in any other career path. So
other than entrepreneurship,
other than being self-employed. So it's that. So it's that's kind of the direction that I had. Graduated from the university and put myself $1 million+ into debt, and then I had to work my ass off to get it. So I bought the body shop, my first store, when I was 25.
Okay. I would imagine that type of a conversation, even one that is business focused, when it is a family conversation, has got to be going one way versus the other.
The real challenge was that we had different levels of commitment. And in a family business, because at that point in time it was very much still a family business. Both my parents are still operating it. So the five of us would work together, and I still lived at home. So it was until we'd have Mondays we spend the day reviewing everything. We should 8-hour meeting, and then we'd have to go. They were required to attend a family dinner afterwards at some restaurant in Houston, and.
Okay.
We just spent 8 hours arguing with each other, and then I've got a list of things I've got to get done, and I want to get started on them. But no, you have to go have dinner, and then
You've always been serial entrepreneur, but you took some time off, if I remember correctly, to sort of assess the situation.
I planned to take about 3 months off, and that 3 months turned into 18. It started a pattern in my life that when I'd get into a business, and when I started losing interest in that business. I get bored. So, generally in year 7 or 8, I start to lose interest. And small businesses don't run well when their owners are not attentive.
Yeah.
Learn that. So I just would tend to sell while the business is at its peak, and then take some time off. And so it's a year off between ventures has always been kind of my plans after that. And it's some of the best times I've had.
Right. So I am very curious about that, because I'm wondering how you would rate the success of that strategy, because I find myself in a similar situation in the sense that I do get bored, and the length of time that it takes for me to get bored varies. But I would say one of my faults is that I don't recognize when I get bored fast enough, and usually I exit on the downslope.
Okay, well, and that's not abnormal. It's I've always been, I would say, overly self-aware. After university, I spent a lot of time studying human nature, and just from largely it started as a sales perspective, and then just as human interest. I wanted to learn how to sell and how to motivate people how to sell, and then I just started learning neat things, and so I started learning more. Plus, I stick to the kind of strictures that I usually have a 1, 3, and 5 year plan.
Right.
So it's in setting up those kind of accountability things for yourself that forces you to examine. Okay, this might be the time to step away. Also, the results speak for themselves. It's like, okay,
the results do speak for themselves, and you would have to be self-aware to acknowledge that, right? And so, because oftentimes you can make excuses for results as well, when oftentimes
when you're running a business that has a payroll, okay, when other people's livelihoods depend upon you and your decisions, you don't have that luxury. You don't have that luxury to kind of lie to yourself. You've got, because if you're gonna further people's lives, and so you can't do that. It's when it's just you, then yes, you can lie to yourself all you want. But when you have to make a payroll, when you have there's a responsibility that comes with that you just don't get until you have to meet a payroll, until you have people working for you, and you're talking to them about their lives, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And
I have had employees, but not to the degree you have. My largest payroll was 2 employees, and but that was stressful. I remember. I had them employed during. I wouldn't say it was the crash of 08, but it was the aftermath of 08. We had, at the time I was running a web hosting and development company, and we did a lot of business in the US. And I watched that currency exchange drop from $1.60 down to about $1.10 over the course of around 18 months. Our workload didn't change, but our margins and revenue just took a nosedive. And so the work was there, and that was the problem, was we still needed the manpower to actually accomplish the work that was coming in, but we weren't being paid the same way. And so obviously in the end, the business suffered because of that. But
why didn't you raise your prices?
Honestly, probably a lack of confidence at the time. I think I was thrust into having employees before I was actually ready. And that happened because I acquired a business. I acquired a business much larger than mine, and it, hands down, best decision of my business career. It worked out extremely well, but I was 25, no formal business education, just learning everything as I go, baptism is by fire, as they say. And I was just immature. I didn't know enough about what I didn't know, or have the maturity to say, I need help. I don't know how to run this business with 2-3 individuals underneath me. So it was very much a lack of self-awareness and maturity that eventually led to the business ultimately made its decisions for me. I didn't control the business controlled me. It's taken a long time to learn that lesson, and maybe, some people learn it earlier than others, but for me, it's the pride is a costly principle, is certainly one of those major ones. So
no room for ego in business.
No, and that is certainly one that I still struggle with. But overall, the logic is sort of taken over when it comes to that.
Do you know what kept me, my ego out of things? Is remember that god awful Harry J. Friedman, the sales course, whatever went through?
Is that the videos you made us watch? Oh, they were terrible.
I remember his line goes, "Would you rather be right or would you rather be rich?"
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather be rich. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was you that told me that you took a contracts course where you wrote a contract for your grade. And so you would have to look at the terms of the contract sheet and say, I'm willing to do X, Y, Z, or Z for the American. And that if you did it, you got the grade that was assigned to that contract. And if you didn't, you breached the contract and you failed.
Yeah.
That's a memory of you? Okay.
That was it. So my entire final semester is that. So I was doing a minor in organizational change and development. And part of that was the entire, at that point in time, there was a total quality movement, Japanese manufacturing, all that kind of stuff was going on. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they said is, we're going to treat this semester like the real world. Okay. Here, if you want to A in the class, here's what you have to do. If you want to B in the class, here's what you have to do. If you want to C in the class, here's what you have to do. If you contract for an A and you miss one item, you fail. Right. So don't contract for an A unless you're going to do everything. That ruined my 4.0 GPA because for one of the courses, I contracted for a B because I didn't think there was a lot of reading. I didn't think I'd have time to get it all done. And turned out the reading turned out to be very, very interesting. So I actually did all the reading, but because I had I could have written reports, but because I had contracted for a B, I couldn't elevate it to an A.
That was all you could get. You couldn't change the terms of the contract.
It
wasn't just a contracts course. It was the entire semester at the beginning.
It was all the courses. So it was I was taking 6 courses that semester. Out of the 6, I believe 4 of them were contract based.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you contracted A's for all the rest except for 1?
I contracted A's for 3 of them, a B for 1 of them, and then the 2 that were non-contracted, I also got A's in them. So.
Okay. So after your 18-month, 3-month vacation, or would you call it a vacation, or would you call it a regrouping? What would you call that? Time after.
I retired for 18 months. So.
You call it a retirement, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
How would you define retirement? Because the course I took, or the coaching system I took, defined it in a very specific way. I'm curious how you define retirement.
I don't think I've ever defined it. It's I called it retirement because that was the word that society uses that best described what I was doing. I changed it. I told, when I was talking to my dad's friends, I told them I was unemployed because I drove my dad nuts. I had a defined amount of money. And when that money reached a certain point, that's when I had to get back in the game.
Okay. And you got into, that was Digitech at the time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. What attracted you to that business?
So first, I was consulting and struggling because I was too young for the field. I was God, I must have been 29, trying to work with people, 15 and 16, teach them how to run a business, even though I had the knowledge.
Right.
It made it hard to land contracts.
It's a marketing thing, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I didn't have enough gray hair.
Yeah.
Our policies and approach and our success really led that industry into becoming more green in Vancouver. I mean, at that point in time, people would throw the empty canisters in the garbage can. God, I remember coming in, like they would be flushing toner into the storm sewer. So, so it's, the industry was all about price and cheapness. And so we brought it to be about quality, about being about the environment, about being social responsibility. And then, we started educating the clients on, what if you buy a toner cartridge for a third of the price, but, you're not getting the proper yields, you're not getting everything. And so we had our whole manufacturing process ISO certified. Remove any questions that, we were remanufacturing in a standardized and appropriate way.
I mean, just because of the history that I know, I mean, you went from Body Shop among the first, if not the first, in leading the way in sort of the cosmetic beauty industry on not testing on animals, which was a socially conscious endeavor. And then you went into, recycling toner and ink cartridges, which was an environmental endeavor, again, socially conscious. And then you went into, you've always been involved with variety, which is, again, giving back to your community and being socially responsible. It would seem that is always a driving force, but maybe I'm misreading.
No, it is. I mean, that was the Body Shop was really my training ground in business. I was educated, but that was my first shot. And the way they did business really resonated with me. So I liked the approach, the philosophy. I had proof right in front of me that it worked. I really didn't know any other way to run a business. Coming out of the Body Shop, I'd never run a non-environmental, non-socially responsible, business. So
right,
taking the lessons that I learned at the Body Shop and then applying them to my current enterprise.
How did you get involved with variety then?
Oh, I do believe my banker at the time, this is when I just started with the Body Shop, and she was the financial chair of Variety's Show of Hearts telethon. She needed extra volunteers one year, and so she caught me while I was at the bank, and she said, "Look, you're an entrepreneur, you're self-employed. Banks look favorably on this kind of stuff." Okay.
Okay.
And she introduced me to it. So I did my first shift with Variety. It was midnight till 8 a.m. at one of their telethons. I think it was 1995. I enjoyed that. I had fun. It allowed me to kind of give back, do all my volunteering in one 72-hour period every year.
Yeah.
And still have a substantial impact. And so then it was just that's how I got involved. And then every time I opened my mouth, I got more responsibility. And then I was the financial chair of the Show of Hearts telethon. And then they asked me to just run to the board. And that year I was elected treasurer. And 2 years later, I was elected president. So it just kind of kept going. But that does go back to the Body Shop and the fact that, one of the core values there was that we had a commitment to give back to the communities we trade in.
Right.
Building a stronger community helps you build a stronger business.
Well, and so have you stepped away from Variety entirely at this point?
No, so I'm still involved with Variety Alberta. So I guess in 2016, probably 2017, I was asked. Variety Alberta was on the verge of folding, so closing its doors.
Okay.
I was asked to go over there and see if there was any hope in saving it, and if not, then to wind down its assets. So we got over there, and I started meeting a few people, and we managed to. I thought there was a future. I thought the issue was that the current board didn't want to do it anymore. So we managed to find called out to all of our Variety contacts, found some board members, and hired a new part-time executive director and relaunched, and averaging about $50,000 a year in total revenue to now we're close to 1 million.
Oh wow! In what period of time was that turnaround?
That was 2 years. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
So it was but 2 very tough years because it was a recession in the oil patch and still is. So.
Right, and in a recession, when you're asking people to give you money, it's a little bit more of a grind. Yeah.
But we also had a real advantage in that in its heyday, Variety Alberta built a playground in downtown Calgary.
Okay.
So our first project was to just refurbish that playground and put Variety front and center, and made us seem that we were a much bigger organization than we were. So we were, that first project, allowed us to get way above our weight class and establish ourselves that we had never gone anywhere. We weren't, it was a good play. So it was good. And,
so it was just good timing then. I mean, partly good timing, but good strategy obviously as well.
And also we spent a lot of time analyzing the market there, and discovered that if Variety Alberta was going to behave like Variety BC, we'd be competing with a lot of different places. So because there was no strong Variety Alberta, things that we did in Variety BC had been taken over by other organizations in Alberta. So, right. Cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy things. And so we found the only place that was really vacant was inclusive play. And it just so happened to work the fact that we had an inclusive playground.
Right.
And so we've kind of made our mandate, and the success comes through just not the timing, but the fact that we stayed focused on that. We said no to requests for medical equipment, and said, no, we're building playgrounds. And so now we've just completed our 4th playground, I think.
Oh wow! Okay, and they're all
inclusive. They're all fully inclusive, so that doesn't matter what level of ability you have, you can go play there. And well, I mean, most people don't build more than 1 playground.
Right. Yeah.
We're going on to number 5, so we're experts in the field right now. So we know right. where to invest and where to cut costs, and
You're basically eliminating the learning curve going forward. You're not just trying to have a new project with a new learning curve every single time. You're taking a winning recipe and multiplying it.
Yeah, and it's still very appropriate too. Inclusive. It's important for and we've branched into other programs. So we also do a program that educates elementary kids on people with disabilities and who are different. Okay. And then we do a Go Baby Go program, which is about giving powered cars to kids with mobility issues so they can.
Okay. Okay.
It's really cool. Yeah.
It's easy to see physical ailments, right? And to think, okay, well, that person's different but internally they're no different. Kids just want to play in general, right? And they see all the kids around them and they want to do the same things. I think that's human nature, certainly at a young age. You just want to do all these things. So the fact that you could enable people to actually go and do that is pretty amazing.
That's really the reason that the reason I stuck with Variety was because every year you'd go to the Show of Hearts weekend and you'd meet these amazing families who are dealing with issues. Some of them, were raising children that had death sentences. They're told they're not going to live till they're 7. And just to see that the way that these kids dealt with their issues and the way the families dealt with the issues, it was just so interesting. Put everything in perspective. It made you realize that, wow, my sales were down. Big whoop, So it doesn't matter. So it's a very rewarding organization to be involved with. The impact you get to see by talking to the families and talking to the people. It's just and talking to the kids. They're amazing. What were you doing before real estate? You had.
I was trying to get my digital receipt platform off the ground, and I did have some success in that. I mean, this certificate here is my Dragon's Den certificate for participating there. I would say I grew more as a person than I did as a business throughout all of that. I do appreciate, because this is more self-serving than it is for you, and so I appreciate.
I thought I was going to get like a 10-minute promotional video about myself.
Go.
No, thank you. I'm not good at promoting myself. No.
I find that hard to believe.
No, I can promote my businesses. I can promote other things, but I tend to let my results stand on their own and speak for themselves. I've never, until now, required anyone else's approval of my stuff. Like, I've been self-employed. Like, I don't give a rat's ass what everyone thinks of whether I did a good job or not. I know what I did. So
Yeah.
I always gave away credit, because it was always a team effort. And, that, I don't know why I could never understand why people always try to claim credit, because by giving away credit, it comes back to you. So, I gave it away to my team, but then everyone says, well, you hired and trained them. I was like, yeah. But, I wouldn't talk about that. So it's, I talk about the success my team's been having. So, yeah.
Not the success of your business.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to ask you a couple quick questions, and then, like I said, I'm going to let you go. What was your worst job ever?
Between high school and first year university, I worked for my uncle's landscaping business. And my parents had a lot in Richmond, and so I was assigned to do that. It was basically tearing out blackberry bushes for an entire summer. It was awful.
Oh yeah, I could see that being pretty bad. I mean, when we go pick
it was
blackberries.
One of the hottest summers we had, and it was a mess. Like, people, you look like you come through a war zone after a day of doing that. So
yeah.
I, of course, would get frustrated with all the proper equipment and just go in there with bare hands. And
do you listen to podcasts? And if so, what podcasts do you recommend the most?
I don't.
You don't listen to podcasts?
No. I mean, I listen to CBC.
Okay.
I enjoy. I enjoy the morning show. A little less now that Rick Clough is gone, but CBC. And then my favorite CBC program is As It Happens. So,
As It Happens. Okay. I think
but
they
no,
have a podcast version of their show, but
they do. But I just find, I don't know. I have, and it's with podcasts and Netflix and everything. Those are things that they're kind of background. They've always been in the background for me. They've never changed. The things I do to relax, because it doesn't take a conscious decision. Like sitting down in front of a TV and turning on and flipping through what's there is very different than sitting down in front of Netflix and trying to decide what to watch.
Yes.
Yes. So I find the same thing with podcasts. So it's I tend to get most of my information from either buy a particular audio course or something, or buy a book or something like that, rather than listen to podcasts.
Okay, so who would be an author you'd recommend, or a book you'd recommend at this point?
Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
If you could give your 20-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Take better care of your body. Do all of your, when you hurt yourself, do all of the, the therapy that goes with it, even when you think you're feeling better. So
finish the prescription.
Yes, you take your prescription until the very end.
Yeah.
And don't sell your house in 2004. Hold on to it for another 2 years.
What is your go-to feel-good food?
Jello. No.
Any particular flavor?
Lime.
Jello.
Although I have orange Jello or whatever Jello in my fridge right now. So.
You have orange in your fridge right now?
Yeah. Well, I just made a batch this morning.
There's always room for Jello.
There is. It's like, besides the fact that it has no nutritional value.
Yeah.
It's the real food.
It's literally just gelatinous sugar, but it does taste good.
It tastes good, and it's fun to play with on the spoon. And
yeah. Well, I love that the final answer was a total surprise. So that's a good place to end it. Like I said, thank you so much for letting me do this interview and ask you a bunch of questions, because it's just such a random thing. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, even though you're stuck at home and you seem to have lots of it. You could be doing a lot of other things with it, I'm sure. So
my pleasure. It was good chatting with you.
Yeah.
Stay healthy and stay sane.
Yeah, and when things are lifted up, we should do an in-person beer and
Absolutely.
lunch. And we had one scheduled, and then it got rescheduled, and then lockdown happened. So yeah, that was unfortunate timing, but yeah. All right.
Talk to you
Thank
later,
you so
sir.
much. Talk to you soon.